Hi guys, welcome back to another Landmarks and Legends video. Now, today I am going to talk about one of the most famous Yorkshire landmarks, probably the most famous Yorkshire landmark to be honest. We're going to have a talk about York Minster. Now, you can't miss York Minster. If you go to the city of York, it's going to be the first thing you see. It towers above the city. It's this spectacular church with the most amazing architecture. So I thought it'd be a good idea to find some facts and some history and maybe even some legends about York Minster. So here we go. Now, York Minster was built between 1230 and 1472. So it was over 200 years being built. Obviously, it evolved over that time, so it would have started off as a little wooden church, and gradually the stone masons moved in and it became the minster or the cathedral that you can see today. It's apparently one of the best examples of Gothic architecture in the world. Now, its tower is the tallest point in the city of York, and you can go up that tower if you're feeling fit. There's a little winding staircase all the way up it, and the tower is 71 metres high, and to get to the top of that tower you have to go up 275 steps. Don't try it unless you're feeling really fit, and don't try it if you're scared of heights, or if you're claustrophobic, if you don't like tight spaces, because that little staircase is really enclosed and you're taken up in a group and you go up and you look around at the top at the views out over the city, and then you all come back down as a group together because there isn't room for you to pass on the staircase. So one group can't go up as the other one's coming down and vice versa. There you go. It has the most incredible medieval stained glass windows. The east window dates back to the 1400s and it's the largest medieval stained glass window going. And the rose window, which is circular, is incredibly famous. Well known all over. People talk about York Minster stained glass. There's also the window that they call the Heart of Yorkshire, and it has like a little heart in it, and that window has a bit of a legend connected to it. So the legend connected to the Heart of Yorkshire window is that if a couple kiss underneath that window, that couple will stay together forever. So there you go. That's nice, isn't it? Lots of people on Valentine's Day, couples go and stand under the window and have a quick kiss, and that's supposed to make sure that their relationship lasts. So that's really good. Let's have a look what else has happened at York Minster. Fires. Seems to be a thing with York Minster. There's been several fires over the years, starting with the first one in 741, which burned down the original wooden structure that was there. There's been a church on that land that far back. There was another one in 1137, which damaged the Norman Cathedral, and then another one in 1840, which destroyed the roof and damaged it really badly. But the most recent fire happened on the 9th of July in 1984. So within my lifetime, within some of your lifetimes. And it started in the south transept. And it was believed to be started by lightning striking the tower, the roof, and setting it on fire. And it really did make a mess. It destroyed the roof. All the wonderful carvings and the roof bosses and things were destroyed in that fire. And the carvers and the wood carvers and the stonemasons had to put everything right again. Now, Blue Peter actually ran a competition back in the day to design a carving to go on one of what they call the bosses, which are up in the roof. And they asked the children to do their own design and send them in. And there was thousands and thousands of designs sent in, and they only picked 6. And those 6 lucky winners had their designs carved onto the bosses, and they are there to this day. You can still see them. There's an astronaut on the moon. There's the Mary Rose, the flagship, the Mary Rose. There's a whale and a diver. all sorts of things up on these bosses. And if you look, you can actually see the more modern take on the bosses rather than the old-fashioned ones that were copied to replace the ones that were burnt. So there you go. Now, York Minster, it isn't the church's official name. It has a very long, very official name. And its official name is the Cathedral and Metropolitical Church of St. Peter. Well, that was a bit of a mouthful. So over the years, the people of York decided, no, we'll just call it York Minster, much easier. And the Minster is how it's known to everybody in York. Did you know that there is choral music, so a choir sings every single day of the year in York Minster, and that music is usually provided at evensong by the members of the Minster School, who have their own choir, and the Minster School is very, very close to the Minster, and the children that attend it sing in the York Minster choir. So there you go, every year. And the Minster has 12 bells that chime out over the city, and it has a very unusual astronomical clock, and it charts the movements of the stars and the sun around York. And the clock itself is shown from the perspective of a pilot who was flying over the Minster, so it's as if he's looking down on that clock and the pattern of the sun and the stars. And it also has a 400-year-old clock that shows 2 nights, and every quarter of an hour, so every 15 minutes, the clock chimes and the nights look as if they're hitting each other with their lancers like that. So there we are. And another very unusual fact, York Minster, would you believe, has its own police force. Absolutely true. And the members of York Minster's police force patrol the Minster, make sure everybody's behaving themselves. They patrol the ground, they watch the CCTV to make sure that everybody's behaving themselves. They help any guests that need it, and they provide first aid for the guests at the Minster as well. So there you go, bit unusual. Now, legends. Well, I've already told you one about the lovers kissing under the Heart of Yorkshire window, which I believe is in the west window, the Heart of Yorkshire. Well worth having a look at. So the legend of the west window, the Heart of Yorkshire window, is the couples kissing underneath it and staying together forever. But as with any old building, we've also got some ghost stories. Ooh, yes, we do. Now, probably the most famous ghost story connected to the Minster was quite a nice one, actually. 2 ladies were visiting the Minster, and they were visited by a man in naval uniform, and he went up and he whispered in one of the ladies' ears, and he literally whispered in her ear, stepped back and just disappeared into thin air, just like that. And it turned out that it was the lady's brother, and the lady's brother had been killed, unfortunately, at sea, and he came back to visit his sister to reassure her that life went on and that there was life after death. So that was quite a nice little ghost story. And there is another one of a gentleman called Dean Gale, and he was one of the senior clergy of York Minster up until his death, and when he died he was very missed by the chaplain of York Minster and by the people of York. And they didn't miss him for long, because it wasn't very long before Dean Gale was popping up in the Minster, and he was seen sitting in a pew and listening to the service, but if people approached him, he just poof, disappeared. And also apparently he approached somebody who was a visitor who was looking around the Minster, and they were looking at some of the beautiful artifacts and the windows and things in the Minster, and he just walked up very quietly beside these people and said, "Do you like my church?" So there we go. So that's Dean Gale, who's still around the Minster and is still very proud of his church. So there you go, York Minster. Tell me, you guys, in the comments if you've actually visited York, or if you've heard any stories about York Minster. Have you been in? Have you had a look round it? If you haven't, when the world opens up again, it's well worth a visit, because it's the most magnificent building. So there you go. another landmarks and legends video done, and I'll be back soon with another one. But in the meantime, everybody, of course, stay safe and stay creative. Bye for now.